after that, along with along with teaching, I served as the CT director in the Trenton Special School District. So that work that we were doing actually brought me to TSIN partially to help lead this initiative. So just super excited about this. And if you are a CTE teacher, then one thing that definitely makes sense is CTE teachers absolutely love their content. There's no doubt about it. So you have this love for CTE if you are a CTE teacher. Not that other educators don't, but for CTE teachers, it just feels that way every time we're in a meeting together. So I'll start off by asking if you all can see this, if somebody can just give me a thumbs up or just tell me that you can see it.
Looks great.
Thank you, ma'am. Operating on two screens here, so if you can see my face, I'm looking back and forth between the two. But today, I'm just going to talk about what the STEM and CTE integration process is and what that looks like in Tennessee. We are actually going on year 3 of that process. So, pretty interesting work that's been done in the past on that. And what we're going to talk about today. What it is, why it's happening, and then how is Tennessee doing it? Because STEM integration into CTE clusters, programs of study, because that is something that's happening at the national level through ACTE, Tennessee is a leader in that. So we get lots of questions from different states, different organizations. How's Tennessee doing this? Y'all have already gotten started. We're trying to develop a plan. What can we do here? So it's nice to know that once again, Tennessee is at the forefront of a new national initiative. So excited about that as well. To start off, what is CTE and STEM integration? So this is a snippet of the Perkins State Plan that was approved and released in July of 2024, which feels like not so long ago now, but I mean, going on 2 years, that new plan has been out. So that runs from 2024 to 2028. And this is specific language within that Perkins plan talking about enhancing and expanding STEM opportunities with an emphasis on mathematics, science, engineering, and technology in all CTE programs. So that is the very short version of the much more detailed version that you would find starting on page 12 about what that integration actually looks like. So, if we focus on the top part here, if we could sum that up into an even shorter statement, it would sound like putting PBL in all CTE programs of study. And so that's what we've been focused on. If we think about STEM, we think about the different content areas that we bring together through PBL, and we think about how students use their knowledge from those different content areas to solve a problem. And so we think about STEM in that context. We're talking about STEM in the context of PBL, spreading it throughout all the different programs of study within CTE. So here's our timeline. We started planning this in 2023. The actual implementation year, you'll see at the bottom, wasn't until 2025. So we spent quite a bit of time planning, talking to CTE directors, working with CTE teachers, getting examples. We really wanted to make sure that when we hit the nail, we hit it on the head and we didn't want to miss. We wanted to give CTE directors and teachers what they really needed for the implementation of this new initiative. And so what we found they needed was training and examples. Ben, if we're going to do this thing, how do we do it? So we provided them with tools, resources, some things that I'll show you near the end of the presentation today. But what we knew we didn't want to do was we didn't want to make it a cookie cutter program that they felt that they had to go back and present to their students or present to their teachers. We wanted that customization piece to be there because everybody on this call, if you have students that you teach every day, 100% of you have different students. So there's no two classrooms that are identical. That means that sometimes PBLs, or that means that PBLs do need to be customized for that group of students. So we totally get that, understand it, and that was a major part of the trainings. Those trainings lasted a full year and then some. Um, but we started with the CT directors in the summer of 2024, administrative level folks, district level folks, talking about what that integration process was going to look like. And then throughout the fall and then the next spring, we had lots of PBL training workshops, both in the fall and the spring. And then last year at the CTE Institute, we had even more PBL trainings, which led to, are y'all going to have more in the fall of 25 when implementation starts? And that's an easy yes for us. So we held another series of trainings. But if you think about where we are right now in this timeline, we're right here at the bottom. So continued support, answering questions, providing resources, just listening to CT directors as things change within their district, and then really working with teachers to help them get the resources and the tools that they need for the process as a whole. Here are the goals that we started with. And if they seem vague and if they seem pretty general, that's on purpose, that's intentional. The main thing that we wanted out of this process was we wanted teachers to understand that there is already a connection between project and problem-based learning within CTE programs. And then we wanted them to be excited about it. We wanted them to know that this is something that all CTE teachers should be doing. And we wanted them to go back to their districts and to go to their schools with the mindset that all students are going to be participating in PBLs. So then comes the question, why? Why are we doing this? Why was it written into the Perkins State Plan? So when we talked about that planning year in the 2023, we were looking at data prior to that, and what we found was that the quality indicators for CTE programs, of all of the programs, the program that scored high in performance and met the state benchmarks, that program was STEM. And so that academic performance in math and academic performance in science met the benchmark and then some. And if we're thinking about modeling a way to improve those scores compared to the state benchmarks, how do we model that? We model it with a program that has already done that, and that program was STEM. So we took that concept, that PBL concept that already exists in the STEM program in the cluster, and we wanted to spread it out through all the CTE programs of study, along with Advanced CTE's modernized framework that they'd already launched nationally. So it made sense. We knew that we wanted to do this. We knew that we were going to need some data to back up that question for the why. And the why and the reason that we found was because of PBL. So there are a few pieces of literature that exists around this and around Perkins, and what you will notice is that some places it says project-based learning, some places it specifically says problem-based learning. If we see project-based learning, then we are thinking about a project that encompasses a problem. So you'll see it written. And I heard Becky Ash say the other day that once something is typed or once something is printed, it's already outdated, and that can't be more true. So what you will see moving forward and what you will see, anything printed or emails that come out, what you'll see is problem-based learning. But if you do see project, we want you to think of it as a project that focuses on solving a problem. So putting that disclaimer out there in the beginning. And then we get into the progressive framework for what this integration looks like, talking about taking a traditional approach and turning it into a more STEM PBL focused approach where we take those different content areas, we connect them into a very meaningful, real world problem solving focus for students and teachers. One way that we've described this is through the three stages of PBL, or the three stages of STEM, as you may have heard it referred to. Um, the target is stage three, but it is very necessary to go through stage one, stage two, until or until you get to stage three. So before I show you the stages of STEM, if you're thinking, well, I'm in stage one right now, does that mean that I'm wrong? The short answer is no. That doesn't mean that you're wrong. That just means that you're in stage one. If you're in stage two, same thing. You're on your way to stage three. And some of you might see this and you say, well, I'm stage four because we're doing all these things. And that's great. And we need to talk after this meeting today because I need to know what you're doing. But the reason why we show this is because there's very much a difference between a true PBL and an activity. And we see lots of STEM activities. We see lots of building challenges, but they're not true PBLs. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. There's just not enough connection to other content areas. There's not enough connection to industry partners. The problems are not complex. So they are what we would consider the early stages of PBL, and those we would consider to be STEM or PBL activities. They're great. The students love them. It is a perfect way to introduce some of the much needed skills that are required for the execution of PBLs, but we don't want to stop at stage one. So moving from those building activities into stage two, we start incorporating things like the engineering design process. We start incorporating things like other content areas. Instead of just building that house, now we're focused on the mathematics, we're focused on the angles, and we're even focused on the construction aspects. We're focused on the math and the business finance that it takes to budget, to purchase those materials. So we've really upped the game with stage two. We've really started to connect more content areas. And now that problem becomes something that's more meaningful for the students. And then once we get to stage three, we've taken that project, or we've taken that PBL from stage two, and now we've made it even more complex. So we have that industry partner that comes in and they introduce a problem within their own industry. We see that example quite a bit where schools or teachers reach out to industry partners. And they say, we want you to come in, but we want you to do more than just be a guest speaker for the day. We want you to come in and we want you to present a problem to our students that they can solve. And we see a lot of PBLs that start out that way and they end fantastically. The industry partners feel more involved. They feel like they have a better connection with the school that can lead to some really great things, like some work-based learning opportunities for some students as they get in to that program. And what that does is it helps strengthen the connection between the industry and the school, but it also shows the industry that they have a pipeline of workers that are potentially coming to them from this specific school because they know exactly the type of work that the students are doing. So again, the goal is stage three, but if you're not at stage three, no big deal. Just work to get to stage three. Biggest piece of advice that we give teachers during these trainings is do not jump to stage three. Don't try to do all of it at one time. You're going to do yourself a disservice, your students a disservice, and then you might experience some PBL burnout because maybe it didn't go how you planned because you bit off a chunk that was too big to chew in the beginning. So start with stage one, do those activities, get students used to making a mess and cleaning it up in the classroom. Slowly integrate the engineering design process, then integrate those industry connections and some of those other technologies into the PBL. It's all about execution and refinement, and that cycle that continues. So, quick activity that I want to do here. And Stephanie, I've lost the chat. Nope, there it is again. Okay. So I've got the chat pulled up. You can come off a mute if you want to, or you can just type it in the chat box. But I'm interested in what you think. So I'm going to show you a PBL topic, and then just kind of in your head, uh, what do you think would make the difference from this PBL topic? What would make the difference from this being a stage one all the way up to a stage three PBL? Like, what would keep this at a stage one, and then what would take this all the way to a stage three? So type your answers in the chat, or feel free to come off of mute and tell me what your thoughts are.
And everybody should be able to unmute themselves. We've enabled that feature, so you don't have to wait for us to unmute you.
All right, so got one in the chat. It says to elevate it to a stage three, have students calculate the cost of materials that it would cost to create it. Yeah, absolutely. So, what content area or what cluster, what program of study might we incorporate into this PBL? Certainly any kind of math, right? I mean, we would need some finance. We could connect that concept. We could definitely connect some geometry to this. That would definitely take it to that stage two, and then to stage three. How might we take it to stage three from this? Maybe we invite an industry that's currently using a particular, oh, okay, perfect. Invite a landscaping company to speak with students. This would involve science, math, technology, engineering, and art throughout the design. 100% Karen. Um, yeah, have an industry come in and tell them we need a new style of greenhouse, and then have them show the typical greenhouse that we've all seen, right? And they're great and they work really well, but we want something innovative. We want something brand new. It would be interesting to look into what goes into biodegradable printing filament. Biodegradable Mardi Gras beads were debuted this year. Okay, well, great. Those things are getting tossed around a lot. So being biodegradable, yeah, certainly helpful. So with that mindset, another thing that we do in the trainings is we show them an example of a STEM activity. And then we very much acknowledge that it is just an activity. It was actually a Lego build that we did, and it's great and it's fun and everyone has a good time. And I hold my watch and I'm timing everybody, and I'm a bit stern when we do the activity. And then when it's over, it's like, all right, what you just did was an activity, nowhere close to a PBL. It's a great icebreaker and it's good for building some of those foundational skills, but there was no content connection there. There was no industry partner connection there. We didn't use any type of innovative technology. We built a structure with Legos. And we make the point to say that those activities are great, but they're not PBLs. They're just activities. Which brings us to how do we get there? Um, how do we take that concept of turning a STEM activity into a true PBL? So we did that through a tiered approach of a lot of trainings. And what we wanted teachers to know is that we were here, we TSIN were here as a resource for them. We could be a sounding board. I've had several personal conversations with teachers. If they had a PBL they were planning, then I can help them work on that. But we wanted to know that we're here for them, and we are working very hard on developing resources, and we're still developing those resources, meaning example PBLs that you can take back and customize for your classes. So we hosted lots of trainings in the summer 24, fall of 24, spring of 2025. I attended the regional core trainings. That was great. Um, a lot of teachers have sent in some PBL examples that they created. We had some PBL focused webinars through Define Learning. We were at Summer Institute 25, and then we did the fall 2025 PD sessions. And so spring, we're not having any PBL focused sessions for trainings, but in the summer, this year, in just a few months, we are going to be having some very specific PBL trainings coming up. So as those are released from the department on what day those are happening, then Stephanie, that can be something, sorry, Dr. Ivy, that can be something that we share out with you all to make sure teachers that are eligible can sign up for. So
That'd be
this
great.
is, yes, ma'am. This QR code will take you to the PBL template. So I'll pause for 10 seconds if you've got your phone, or, I don't have that link copy to paste in the chat here. If you can scan that with your phone, that'll take you to the PBL template. But I know what I can do is this right here. Okay, now you can open it on your computer if you'd like, but that will take you to this. So this is the PBL template that has existed on the TSAN website for a long time. But what we did was we took that template and we added some very specific CTE language. If CTE teachers are using this template, we wanted it to feel like something that connected very well with what they know. So, CTE program of study being added in here was something we knew we wanted to do. Having a hook to get your students interested, a big component of CTE programs all around the state, and something that I feel very passionate about. CTSO competitions. The CTSOs in Tennessee are so fantastic, and they have such a great team that leads all of that. And right now is CTSO season, so you have all those conferences and competitions coming up. So if there's a way to get your students connected to a CTSO, then do it. And that's a great way to get them hooked for a PBL. We did change a little bit of specific language from industry and community partners. One might argue that they are the same thing, and I would argue that they are the same thing. But just for the language purpose there, we added in industry. Um, for the career connections, we just added in the within your region phrase here, because as we think about the programs that are happening at our school, we want them to be impactful for the community that the school exists in. So we want to think about what careers we have that are within our community or that we might consider to be within our region. Might not be true of all, but I do hear teachers say a lot that once our students graduate, we want them to come back. We want them to contribute to the community that they grew up in. I think that's a very true statement. So CTSO connections added in here. And then this part here, the industry credential. So it's not necessarily about offering an industry credential within that PBL, but it's certainly making sure that students are aware that those industry credentials are available and that they can earn those industry credentials while they are in school, and they will be at no cost to the student. Some teachers build in an industry credential component to the PBL, and that's fantastic. Some don't. Some leave it as a separate piece, and that's also fine. But this template is something that we have shared out since day one of the trainings. And this was one of those resources that CTE teachers and directors asked for, saying, if we are going to build a PBL, where do we start? And so we make sure that they have this in their hands just so they can create at least some type of outline for that PBL. The content of trainings, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we did at some of the various trainings. And then after this, I will pause for some questions if you have any. And again, if you have some, you can just throw them in the chat there and I'll try to get to them. Um, so at some of the trainings, we try to customize all the trainings. That way it doesn't feel super repetitive. Some teachers just aren't able to go to all of the trainings. So if they're able to go to one, then we want to make sure that it's meaningful for them. If they go to all five that we've had, we want to make sure it's meaningful for them too. So we make sure that we add new components, different ways of thinking for the trainings that we provide around this. So the integrated STEM learning through PBL, that is something that we focused on the stages of STEM and really how to take a project from stage one all the way to stage three, much like we discussed earlier. Uh, we focus very much so on the components of a strong PBL. What would you find in a PBL? So, six components that make a strong, or what you might refer to as a gold standard PBL. Number one, they are open-ended, meaning that there is not an ABCD answer for the problem that the students are solving. It is very much left up to the students as to what solution they come up with. The integration of 21st century skills, soft skills that students need, um, collaboration. A lot of people say grit when we get to this component here. And it's not about directly identifying those skills. It's about giving the students the opportunity to practice those skills. Um, as a teacher, one of my favorite things to do was intentionally ignore student questions the first time that they ask. And what I found was that they would ask, I would ignore the question, and I would tell them I wasn't mean about it. I'm not answering that, and it would force those students to work together to try to find the answer to that one specific question. Eventually, they got comfortable enough with the PBLs that they didn't ask me 10 questions a minute, as that can happen sometimes in projects. So, just different methods of helping those students build those skills. We do want to make sure that it stays content focused. I talked earlier about building that greenhouse. What course are we in when we're building this house? Um, we want to make sure that it stays focused on what the students need to be learning. Um, a big question that we get from teachers is if I'm doing PBL in my classroom, that feels like extra. So we don't want it to feel like extra. We want it to feel like it's a piece of the classroom that integrates the content that you are already teaching. So if your PBLs are content focused, then that's going to happen. All right, fourth one is student led. Students are leading the charge. That also ties in with me ignoring some of those questions from the students. They are the ones that are doing the heavy work while the PBL is being executed. There's a lot of planning that goes in to PBLs. Once that planning is done and the students start, it should be primarily students that are doing the work for PBL, and the educator, the teacher, should be a facilitator for that. Now, sure, there's some things that you may have to address as the PBL happens, but the students should be the ones that are leading the conversation, that are working to find those solutions. Fifth one, we want to make sure that it's relevant. We talked about an industry partner coming in to identify a problem for the students. I can't think of a better way to make something relevant than to have it be something that the students truly care about. For example, they drive past a large building on their way to school every day. And no idea what happens in that building. Well, now I'm Steve from the building that's right across the street over there. Here's what we do. Here's the problems that we have. That can lead to some really strong connections, and it can also lead to your students wanting to do more PBLs and they want to stay more focused because they have a real problem that they're trying to solve. So, relevance there can connect with student led if you talk about student choice and having that project be open-ended so the students do feel like they're the ones that are choosing the solution. The last one is a student created product. Student created products can be so many things. They can be a PowerPoint presentation, they can be a physical build, they can be a spoken word, they can be a song, they can be a video, something that the students create to represent their possible solution for the problem that they are addressing. I think a common misconception is that sometimes we think student created product and we think that we have to build something for it to be considered a STEM project. Not true. We've seen lots of great examples, especially in ELA, where the students are not physically building anything. They are writing a paper discussing their solution to the problem that they addressed. And those are just as impactful as the PBLs where students physically build something. So these six components of a strong PBL, these drive a lot of the exercises that we do at the trainings. And so what we knew that we wanted and what we knew we needed was a way to make those PBLs more impactful for CTE teachers. So what was done was in the SciScope quality indicators that CTE teachers have to report each year, PBLs were added in for indicator two. So CTE teachers have to provide evidence for what they're doing in their class, and they have to meet these indicators. I'll show you the page in a moment. But what was built in was integration of appropriate grade level academic, technical, employability, and leadership skills. And the evidence might include engineer design portfolio, problem-based learning project plans with examples of student work, along with some other things. So now PBLs aren't just good for the students. Now they're good for the students and they help us satisfy indicator two for our SSQIs. And I'm just going to show you. If you're a CTE teacher, you are familiar with that document. But if you're not, this is what that document looks like. And I apologize if that's a little small there. But what you'll see is that CTE educators have to provide evidence for five different indicators. And the one that I just referred to is indicator number two. So PBLs now satisfy indicator number two for SSQIs. And that was more recent than some of the trainings that we started off with. So that we were really excited to be able to announce that. So that was big. And if we look at, sorry, folks, if we look at this line here, the appropriate grade level academic, technical, employability, and leadership skill development. How are we providing evidence for that? What we did is we broke it down. And now the phrase well executed PBL tells the tale, technical skills, academic skills, leadership skills, and employability skills for your SSQI indicator two. How does that connect? Which leads us to this activity right here. The six PBL components. Where might you find those four different areas? So I think we have plenty of time to do this. You don't have to type anything in the chat. This is just something that I want you to mentally do, and I'll show you in just a moment our example. I know that this is being recorded, so the example that I will show you is just our example for training purposes. That doesn't mean it's the only example, and you'll see in just a moment. But if we think about the components of PBL and we think about our four qualifiers here, technical, academic, leadership, employability, where would you find those four qualifiers within these components of PBL? All right, so there, all six of them are. You've got TALE. Just think about where you would find those four different qualifiers. Where would the technical skills live? Where would the academic skills live? Where would those employability skills live? Right? So just mentally look at this, think about where they might be. All right, and then in the trainings, I click the next slide and then all the letters pop in. And I say, some of you might have found that only the L and the E applied for open-ended. And then someone raises their hand. They're like, well, I put academic skills in open-ended. And I say, great. Because what we wanted from this was we wanted teachers to recognize their interpretation of those four qualifiers. We're not going to say this one only lives in open-ended and 21st century skill. What we're going to say is, what's your interpretation? And whatever your interpretation is of this, that's what's right for your classroom. And then we go back to say that not everybody has the same students or the same situation. So again, just making sure that this is customized for teachers. Another piece of the trainings that we offer was the standard selection and deconstruction. So, Ben, if I am going to build a PBL and I've never done it before, where do I even start? What do I do? We do great projects in my class. We focus on problems, we really do. But I've never planned a PBL before, so I don't really know where to start. So, this activity helps teachers get started for that. So, what we have them do is we have them select a standard from their cluster or from another cluster. We provide them with some examples, and then we present them with this. And now this comes from accounting, this comes from finance, but we show them this specific standard. And then the big question, how do you take this standard and how do you turn it into a PBL? How do you get started doing that? So, role of accounting, define accounting's role in business and compare the various functions and roles, right? So, from this standard, turning it into a true PBL, one way that you could start is by taking that standard and identifying different activities, different competitions, a lesson, an event. You can try to identify all the six components, identify community partners, a product that the students can make. Is there a CTSO that connects with it? How could it be related to the real world? What skills are involved? Or we could do it this way. And so we gave teachers this standard, and then we showed them this component organizer. So what I'm going to do is copy this into the chat so you can always see it. And then I'm going to show you the blank component organizer. Whether you are a finance teacher or not, I would argue that you could fill in some of these boxes without having any knowledge of, or very limited knowledge of finance. So you don't have to type in the chat. If you want to come off of mute and tell me what you think, then that would be great. But again, look at this component organizer, look at that standard that I just put in the chat, and tell me from that standard, the role of accounting, who could be the industry or community partner, and what might we ask of that individual? And then we're going to write that here. Again, looking at the same standard, role of accounting. What are we achieving? What problem are we solving? So, what could a problem be from that standard? What problems exist within that world? Is there a competition you could make from that? And then, what technology could you incorporate for that standard? Is there another content connection that can be made from that standard? And so this activity takes quite a bit of time. We have teachers pair up together so they can discuss, and then we ask them to take several minutes to fill out the component organizer using just that specific standard as the practice. So that's kind of what I would like you all to do now. Look at this organizer, look at that standard, and see if you can come up with a few answers. So I'll pause for about 2 minutes and then I would ask if anybody wants to come off mute to give us a couple examples here. And if you would prefer to type it in the chat, that's no problem. Just go ahead and do that. You don't have to come off mute if you don't want to.
And the one thing
Bam.
that I know that in middle school I hear a lot with my students is that they want to be entrepreneurs. So I started thinking about one of the things that I would ask of them is for the industry partner would or community partner would be how do they manage their startup and how do they manage their continued finances? Because I think that would give them a different way of looking at it. Because I think immediately you want to jump into banking almost, but there's other ways to bring it in, I would think.
No, I love that example.
And tech, I mean, that really opens the door for, students can create something using technology, 3D printing. They could 3D print something. They could try selling it if you have like a fundraiser event, like we have a Maker Fest. They might decide that they're going to sell some things to start up, just get kind of a taste of entrepreneurship.
Oh, and now we're getting into school-based enterprise. I love it. That's a perfect segue into that. Great example. Hannah said, look within the school at the accountant slash bookkeeper. Involve some of the people that students see daily, but maybe don't understand their role so they can develop a better respect and understanding of them. Oh my gosh, absolutely. The book, how important in the school is the bookkeeper? And sometimes that gets overshadowed by so many things. Uh, as a coach and as a head of a program that was managing, I mean, just tens of thousands of dollars, yeah, the bookkeeper plays a huge role. And you're right, the students see that person. Okay, well, I know that that's Miss Tammy, but I don't really know what she does. Having her come into the classroom, that's going to make that connection for those students. And then how much enjoyment is Miss Tammy getting out of that? Now you've got her locked in to your English class because you've decided to bring her in to talk to your students. So just thinking about developing the culture of your school around STEM and around PBL, now you've got the bookkeeper involved. So now who's willing to go a little bit extra if there is an ask that comes with it? So yeah, Karen, great example. Hannah, love that example. Someone gave you a heart there, and I think that's awesome. All right, before I just show you some of the examples that folks have come up with over time, the folks are me. This is what we did for training. Anybody else want to say anything? Anybody else want to add or maybe say what they would put in the box? Got about 10 seconds and then I'm going to go forward. All right. So from that, we move to the examples. Karen, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people go straight to the bank. Hannah, you said it before I could. The school bookkeeper. Have those folks come in. Have them talk to your students. What are we achieving? What problem are we solving? A question could be, why are accounting practices an essential piece to business success? And then why? And then if there's a business that you want to create a fake business, why did that go out of business? And we talk about the use of AI in schools. If you want to use an AI model to help you create a business and then pretend as if this business went out of business and give me reasons, that could be a great starter. There's a local business here that they have just recently gone out of business. So why did that happen? What happened? Was it financial reasons? And then the students can dig in and they can see that there were some discrepancies in the book log for some things that were happening financially that weren't ethical. So then how's we can accountants provide a presentation for an interview to showcase how essential our position is to a local business? Yeah, if I'm applying for a job interview, here's why you need me. I'm an accountant. I went to school. I have a degree. This is why I need to work for you. So that could be an example of a driving question that you have there. Just thinking about the CTSOs and what connections that they could have. DECA, Personal Finance Literacy, TSA has a prepared presentation competition. And then another culminating event example could be the mock job interview. So having a community member come in to do those interviews could be super impactful. And then thinking about what other content connections that we have and what other content areas, I'm sorry, what other technologies we can use. Maybe we can connect some math in there, have some of those ACT math standards connected, and then maybe we're using Canva on laptops or desktops for the presentations, and then using spreadsheet. And then now we're introducing formulas and what how those can be useful even at home with your own personal finances. So just some examples of how to lay out that first PBL. Um, we found this tool to be helpful. Teachers found it to be helpful just for getting those ideas out of your brain and onto paper or onto the screen if you're typing it. But really just breaking down that standard to see there are so many components to this thing. I mean, I see three PBLs in front of me right now. I'm hiring, right? If I'm teaching this class, two of my students that might need a little extra attention and maybe they get a bit distracted. I think we know the students I'm talking about. Those are my auditors, and they're going to audit y'all's business in 4 days. You have 4 days to prepare for this audit. Now, my auditors, you've got 4 days to learn about your responsibilities and to come in to audit these businesses that the students are creating. Oh, and they're going to come in and they're going to try to get them. So now they're super involved and they're super invested because they want to take down the businesses and they want to try to catch them from the businesses that they created. So I'm just thinking that would be a really fun example. I kind of want to do that now. So I will digress from that. But that leads to the how do I know part, right? Ben, I've outlined it. I filled out the template. We've started a PBL. How do I know if I'm even doing this the right way? I think I've got it, but I'm not sure. And then my favorite one is how is this any different from what I already do? Um, about once a workshop, when we go to the trainings, we have some really great examples, and there are some teachers that are already doing PBLs. And what we find is they are doing PBLs, but those PBLs that they do could be so much better because they just need to integrate one more piece. Maybe they just don't have that technology piece in there. Maybe they just don't have that community partner connection with their PBL. So they take a look at what they are doing in their class and they realize, like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, this could go to the next level if I would just invite a community member into my classroom. So, how do I know and how do I answer some of those questions? This is a tool that was created to help answer those questions. So, again, you can scan that QR code or you can go to this link, and this will take you to the observation tool that exists. It's actually in our Google Drive, but this was created specifically for the CTE PBLs. So what you'll see on here is kind of like a checklist, and we tell teachers, can y'all still see my screen? I don't see my message anymore. Can y'all see this observation checklist on my screen? Can someone let me know that? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
So we tell teachers to use this as a look for, um, and administrators. This isn't going to replace that evaluation tool that you're using, but this could be a way that you have peer observations, that you have those quick walkthroughs. If I want to see a PBL in action, I can take this into a classroom and I can look for some of these things that are happening. Now, are you going to see all of these things happen in one day for a PBL? Probably not. But if you see a few of them happening, and then if you don't see some of them happening, that's a great question starter. That's a great place to provide some feedback. You know, uh, insert teacher name. I didn't see a community connection with your PBL. Tell me what that looks like. And now that can lead to the conversation like, well, you didn't see one because I don't have one. Well, we've got so and so down the street that said that they want to come help out. So that could be another way to really help build more connections within your school. So that's a free tool, and that is available from that link. That's also in the CTE resources that you'll see in a moment. But so before I get to that, I do want to ask if anybody has any questions about the trainings, about the process, about the things that you just saw. I know that I'm very aware. I get excited and I talk quickly, especially for things that I'm passionate about. So if it feels like I went very quickly over a certain topic, it's probably because I did. I wanted to fit in as much as I possibly could today. So I can't apologize for it because that's who I am as a person. But what I can do is tell you that you can ask me any questions about this that you'd like. And if you want to ask them here today, perfect. And if you want to wait till later or send me an email, then that's fine too. But does anybody have any questions about this before I get to the end? Going to give you about 10 more seconds for the bravery if you've got one. If not, I'm going to be moving on. All right. I'm going to take no questions as a good sign. So, outcomes from previous trainings, hundreds of teachers that we've had come to these trainings, and we will have hundreds more attend future trainings. We are going to be doing more trainings in the summer of this year. We're going to be doing more trainings in the fall of next year. So be on the lookout for those. That information we'll make sure that Dr. Ivy gets so she can send it out in her updates as they're planned and as they're noted. So just continue to look for those. But a big thing here is as I'm talking today, maybe some of you are saying, what I have is better than this. Or maybe you're saying, I have a PBL that Ben needs to see. If that's you, then please scan this QR code or click on that Typeform link there, and that will take you to, I'll just do it. That'll take you to this. So this will be a place where you can tell me what you want me to see and what you want me to have, and then we can have a conversation about the possibility of us collecting that PBL from you to share with the rest of the state, because that's what it's all about, is just creating that network and making sure that everybody has what they need for the implementation of the process. So that link is in the chat and that QR code is right there. This is a website that well, it's a page on our website that was just recently created, I mean, 6 months ago, for the integration process. So TSIN home right here. And we've updated our website, by the way. If you haven't visited in a while, you need to go check it out because it looks even better now. But under the What We Do tab and then Professional Learning, if you click on CTE integration, it takes you right here to this page. It talks about why CTE integration. And then down here, helpful tools. This is where you will find the dates for those trainings. They'll be emailed out, but you would also find the dates right here. And then this will take you to the PBL planning toolkit. It takes you to a Google Drive folder where you see the observation tool in here. You'll see the training presentations that we've had previously. Those are all in here, so you can check those out as you would like to see them. All right, and then what's next? 2026. The summit is May 4th and 5th. We're going to have some very specific CTE sessions there. Super excited about those. And then summer 2026, the CTE Institute. The format's going to be a little different for that this year, but those training dates will be released soon. Here again, and I'll just copy and paste that into the chat. This takes you directly to the registration for Summit. Those tickets go very quickly. So please make sure that you get tickets to that show before they run out. It's at Gaylord this year. That place is huge. We've got a really nice space reserved for the Summit. Jeff Corwin, if y'all are at similar age to me, you know that that guy is an animal superstar. He's going to be our keynote speaker this year. So super, super pumped about that. And then lastly, if you need me, you need me. That's my email. That's my cell phone number, the one that I keep in my pocket. So if you have a question or if you have something that you would just like to know more about, send me an email, send me a text message. I do prefer text messages because I can look at them multiple times. If I miss your call and I don't recognize it, good chance I may not call you back. So send me a text instead of calling me. That's more helpful for me. But you are more than welcome to do that. So, Stephanie, I know that I'm right up against it here, and I do apologize for that. But anybody have any questions before I turn it back over to Dr. Ivy?
All
Well,
right. Well, if you do it, oh, sorry, was somebody talking?
that was me just saying,
Oh,
okay.
okay. I was going to say, well, if you do have questions, you know how to get in touch with us. And we really appreciate you, Ben, for being here today. This was awesome. Thank you also for allowing us to record it. We will post this to our STEM Hub website, and then we'll follow up with all of you with the PDH for today. And then I think, Ben, you said you could share the slides for me to share with them. So I can send that out with the PDH so that you can review these. And then as you think about everything, if you have questions, you can reach out to Ben to learn more.
That's great. Well, thank you, Dr. Ivy, for having me. Always appreciate it. And I was in Memphis today. I was actually on a school visit. I couldn't stop by and say hello, but I was
Oh
thinking about
man,
it there.
sorry we missed you. Well, thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Good to see everybody.
Bye.